I'm going to tell you two stories, and the first story is called The Applesauce Ghost. So in this story, there's a man. He lived in a house and he had tons of apple trees. This man made lots of applesauce out of all the apples. And people came to his house and they said, "May we have some fresh apples for our kids?" And he said, "No, you may not." And then more people knocked on his door, but he kept saying no. Eventually, this one man, who was very old and hasn't eaten for a long time and was starving, and so he knocked at the door, and the man answered, and the man who was starving said, "Can I just have one milk jar, or just one piece of bread, or just something to eat, or half even?" And the man said, "No, clear off my land." And so he did. But then he came back to the and the man slammed the door, and it hit his head and he died, tumbled over the steps into the grass. And then there's a misty fog that was greenish. It was coming up, and then it started turning whiter and whiter. And then it knocked at the door. Wham, wham, wham. The man was eating his lunch. And he said to himself, don't people know that I will never give any bite of food to them? And so he just kept eating his lunch. And then he heard another wham, wham, wham. And he said, "I don't want to answer that." And so he went back to eating his lunch. Then he heard another wham, wham, wham. So the man answered, walked across the living room and answered. He opened the door and he said, "Can you clear off my land? Can you clear off my land? Can you clear off my land?" And the ghost, and he was backing up. The ghost was following him. And the ghost said, "Applesauce, applesauce." And so he said, "Okay." And so he went to his kitchen and he opened the cupboard and got the smallest bowl he could. Then he poured one jar of applesauce into it and slid it across the table. There was a loud slurping sound. All the applesauce is gone. And then he said, "More, more." And the man got his bowl of applesauce and slid across the table. it was all gone. He said, more, more. And so the man kept getting jars and jars and jars of applesauce. He had hundreds of thousands of jars. And he all poured them into his biggest mixing bowl and slid it across the table. All the applesauce was gone in the whole house. Slurped up all of it from the bowl. Then the man sat on the floor crying, I have no applesauce left. And so the ghost slid over to the door, went out the door, went back to his grave above the person, and the guy who got killed woke up. And he said, oh, I feel so good. I never felt this good in my life. I'm not going to eat for another 3 days. And so that man went to his house and had a good life. That is the end of this story.